NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rant. Politti here, Lanny here. Fonseca is someplace. Where you at? The hotel. Clearly, I can see the blinds. The blinds are the giveaway.
I'm at a 4 Points Sheraton in the Chicago O'Hare Airport. I'm a new man. I'm wearing a collared shirt. My hair is out instead of my Star Ledger hat. My mother will finally be happy to click one of these videos and not call me and say, Brian, take off the hat. What are you doing? Cut your hair. That's going to be her new her thing she'll say after this episode. She's been bugging me to cut my hair for weeks, but I'm not going to do it. Anyway, yes, I'm in Chicago for Big Ten Media Days. We spoke with Coquise Washington and a couple of women's basketball players today. Tomorrow, Steve Peichel, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and Jeremiah Williams coming to his hometown. They'll be speaking from Chicago tomorrow. So exciting stuff.
You lost me at the hotel, though. A Homewood, what is it? What?
4 Points Sheraton.
God,
it's a Marriott hotel. It's a Marriott property. Let's not pin our noses down on this.
Hotel. Chicago's a good hotel town. I'm disappointed. As a podcast sponsored by an excellent hotel, the Heldrich. I'm a little disappointed in your hotel choice. And as a man about to travel to the heartland to stay at a Fairfield Inn, as a hotel snob, I'm doubly disappointed in that myself, that I have to do this. But you're in Chicago. It's one thing in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're in Chicago.
Totally agree. Very fair points. And I know this is a thrilling conversation that people love to talk about hotels, but two things. One, very fairly priced, this hotel, I would say. And two, convenience. I was 5 minutes away from the Rosemont Convention Center. Smooth ride. I would rather have a 5-minute drive in a decent hotel room than a 20-minute drive and a nice, penthouse suite that you stay in whenever you travel, Politti.
I bet you that thing smells like a dead dog. That's my impression of this O'Hare Homedale suite.
Well,
thing.
Now I'm going to cry myself to sleep.
That's below a Fairfield Inn.
I've stayed at a Red Roof Inn. This is not a Red Roof Inn. Okay, at least I'm not doing that.
I just want to make sure that the folks who are listening to the podcast, who see that we are sponsored by the Heldrich, the finest accommodations in New Brunswick, understand that the podcast does not endorse this hotel choice. Every city in the Big Ten should have a Heldrich. There you go. That's my pitch on that. All right. Moving on.
Every city should have a Heldrich, and we should get a massive discount in all of the Heldrich. Just say wink, wink, nod, nod.
The Heldriches, Heldros,
Heldricks.
Heldrinese.
Heldrinese. All right.
I like that.
All right, we got Nebraska. You're going to go straight from. We'll talk about Big Ten Media Day at the end. I think more people want to hear about Nebraska. You're going straight from Chicago to Omaha. I'm going from New Jersey to Kansas City and driving up from there. Don't ask, Pat. You've at least got some flight. You're going directly from LaGuardia to Omaha. So we're all going to get there. We're getting to Lincoln, Nebraska. A great venue, a fun place to watch a college football game. And what everyone thinks is going to be a competitive game, right? I mean, Pat, you've had a chance to break down Nebraska. Let's go a little deep on them. What do you think?
I think what Nebraska does, like what Rutgers does well, defensively, red zone defense, critical moments. I think Nebraska does well defensively as well. The thing that really sets Nebraska apart is the freshman quarterback, Dylan Raiola. We heard his name all preseason, and he's really lived up to the hype. He was the number one quarterback recruit in this class, and he's looked the part. Today, Coach Schiano actually called him, he has the makings of a phenom, which really took me back. To say that
he's
about
he's returning the favor after Matt Rule described Kyle Monunga as a character in the Matrix. I guess
yes.
It's just a mutual adoration society here, I guess.
Sure. We do know that Schiano is never at a loss for words for other teams players, but still. But yeah, he's legit. He's legitimate. He's a great leader. He gets the ball out quickly, throws the ball downfield very well. And I think that what Nebraska has a big advantage is and Schiano talked about this too, huge receivers, 6'4", 6'3", 6'2", and big, like 200 to 220 pounds. They're going to create physical matchups, advantages for themselves. I think the one area Nebraska struggles with, they have a running back by committee. they don't run the ball nearly as well as Rutgers. Clearly, their identity on offense is through the air, and but that defense is underrated in my opinion. They're good up front, tough. They bring a lot of pressure, and I like what I see from the defense. It reminds me a lot of what Rutgers does well at this moment, playing well on third down and key moments.
To go off that, the Nebraska defense, their strength is their rush defense, and obviously that's the strength of the Rutgers offense. Their pass defense is not as great, and as we've seen Cali Kmanis do in the last couple games, make some big plays. It's going to have to be a similar thing. I don't think Nebraska's played a running back, especially not a duo especially not Kyle Monangai, but also a duo like Monangai and Brown. So I think that'll be a bigger challenge. But I think it's going to be another week of Ethan Cali Kmanis having to come up big in the key moments, and I think this is going to be another close game. I know the spread is 6.5. I think it might be another field goal game. And as I said on our rapid rant after the Washington win, Rutgers has been really good in that department recently. Nebraska has been really, really, really bad in that department for 2, 3, 4 years now. So I think if it does get to that point, Rutgers will be more comfortable in it than Nebraska.
Back to your point, Nebraska 87th in rushing offense, 144 yards a game. I think there were microscopic numbers against Illinois and a loss there. Obviously, a good Illinois team. Yeah, I mean, I think if you stop Nebraska, you stop the run, and you force Dylan Raiola to beat you. Of course, he's completing 70% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he's been sacked 8 times. 6 against Illinois. I wonder if this is an opportunity. We've talked about it earlier this week in the podcast. If this is finally an opportunity for the defensive front to make an impact in the game for Rutgers.
It has to be. And Aaron Lewis, the face of that unit at defensive end, the guy that's been one of their best pass rushers for the last couple of years, was straight up, and he was honest today. He said, we haven't done the job, and we know that. So they know, they feel the impetus. They're working hard to try to fix this. The statistics are ugly. Rutgers, after having no sacks and no tackles for loss in the last game against Washington, is now 116th and 123rd, respectively, in those two categories. So we've hammered this point, I think, ad nauseum, but this has to be it. And they're talking about it, right? These guys are fired up about this opportunity to change that and make this the game. So the statistics kind of they go both ways here. Nebraska struggles offensively, up front. Rutgers has struggled to get to the quarter, or to bring down the quarterback, as we've said. So we'll see who ultimately can get it done.
That's interesting. You mentioned that though about Aaron Lewis. He's a leader of this team too. A guy's been around forever. Tell us more about that interview. I mean, I'm kind of fascinated that he would kind of say that up front about what's happening, because usually these guys are very cautious. They
are, but when Aaron Lewis is probably one of the most honest guys in that locker room. Mm-hmm. A guy that's very media savvy, knows what he's saying, and knows that his words have weight. This was a one-on-one interview with him and me after practice today on Wednesday. So I kind of pressed him on a little bit on the struggles on the defensive line and the struggles, failure to tackle, the things that we've been kind of talking about on this podcast, and that's kind of what led to some of his answers. We'll have a story up in the next day or two about addressing the defensive struggles. So you can read the full context of that in that story. But yeah, it was a really good interview, and a guy that's been, like you said, the face and a guy that's not afraid to put a target on his back, and a guy to step up and say things that need to be said.
I like Aaron Lewis a lot, and I think that he is kind of the face of this potential that's untapped on the Rutgers defense. Like, we know there are a lot of guys there that have the tools and can ultimately take that next step. Aaron Lewis has kind of been on the border there. He leads the team in pressures again. I'm fairly certain he led them in pressures last year. The end product is what's missing. And I think when he can unlock that will be a first step for Rutgers, because he's a guy that does typically beat his guy. He does beat his guy at a decent rate. I'd have to look up his win rate, but he does beat the guy relatively often. It's just a matter of getting the end product. And I'm curious on the other end with Dylan Raiola, as you mentioned, Steve, really high completion rate. And for the most part, is a composed guy, as a true freshman. In big moments against Illinois, fourth quarter, he had a guy wide open for the game-winning touchdown. He overthrew him by a mile. And this was at a home game, right? It's not like it was a road environment and it's tough. I'm curious if Rutgers can get him in those situations where it's do or die and he's got to complete these passes, how he'll react. And part of that is creating some pressure. with blitzes, I'm curious too, when a guy is that accurate, do you want to add more guys attacking the quarterback and opening yourselves up to getting nickel and dimed by the secondary? I think there's an interesting chess match that's going to play out here. Greg Schiano said he's not preparing for Raiola differently than he did for Will Rogers, who has a lot more experience than Dylan Raiola. But I got to think that you see an opportunity with a freshman, a true freshman, an 18-year-old kid, to maybe make him feel a little bit uncomfortable and see what he'll do in that situation that he probably has not seen very often.
Right. And it's not exactly murderer's row that Nebraska has played. Start with 4 home games: UTEP, Colorado, it's a good win. Northern Iowa blew them out. Illinois lost Illinois, then at Purdue, which we talked about 3-0 at halftime, was just an ugly game. Nebraska looked dysfunctional on special teams, the best way to put it. Kicking game was a hot mess. And then it just kind of, it blew them out in the fourth quarter. So yeah, this you can make an argument. I think this is the best defense that Dylan Raiola has faced, right?
Yeah. Illinois is better. Illinois is an elite defense.
You think so?
I think Illinois is a better defense than Rutgers, especially given
the way the running defense
shockingly replaced a lot of good guys. Like the thing with Illinois coming into this year was, how are they going to replace all these guys they lost to the NFL and graduation? They've done it really well. So give Bielema some credit there. They've done a good job defensively, but I think if Rutgers plays up to its potential, especially in the secondary where it has been pretty good, I think it's 1A and 1B, right? Like or 1A and whatever. they're very, very close.
All right, what is the health situation for the Scarlet Knights? Do we have any sense? I know we're not allowed to reveal much, but what can we say, Pat? What are you allowed? Have you asked? Did you ask the question this week, and you do it in French this time to throw them off? Maybe if you.
If anyone watched the press conference, I snuck it in. Like, is Eric Rogers got hurt on the last defensive play of the game? Remember, he was on the sideline right before they lined up to kick, or maybe the second to last, whatever. It was right at the end of the game. So we didn't get to see if he came back in or not. Eric Rogers, of course, starting cornerback. So I framed the question to say, you're talking about the big receivers and potential matchups there. Is there anything you can say about the defensive backs and how's Eric Rogers doing? He went, oh, that's a nice try, but I'll leave that for the availability report.
It's great. The meaning of life. I just don't understand. Longer me healthy? Huh? What?
So yeah. So
great.
there were 3 key injuries in that game against Washington. Robert Longerbeam went down in the second quarter, came back right before half, played the second half. Brian Felter also got injured, offensive guard, left guard, also came back into that game. But and then Rogers, like we said, so 3 injury concerns. Don't know exactly where they're at health wise. All I can say is we will check the availability report at 2:00 Eastern time when it is revealed by the Big Ten.
So exciting.
It's hard to measure, but I would argue that we are at least tied for the most ferocious refreshers of the availability report 2 hours before kickoff. You should see our fingers bleeding from how often we hit F5 to be the first ones to see who was out.
Oh boy. All right. So we don't know the answer to that, but it looks relatively healthy.
I would assume at least a couple of those guys are going to be questionable this week.
Right. All right, weather. This is funny. I don't know if you guys have plugged it into the old weather app. Have you seen the forecast? Someone sent it to me. I was like, is that Puerto Rico or is that Lincoln, Nebraska? 96 degrees high with a low of 50 with 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. I mean, that's not what I was expecting. It's not what I was expecting. Yeah, it's crazy. I guess that could impact the game. And if it does impact the game, you would think it would, again, favor the better rushing team.
It's crazy that the weather.com has actually issued a heat advisory warning just for being in Lincoln. Not obviously not exhaustive physical activity like the football game. So crazy situation. And Schiano brought this up on Monday. When Matt Rule came back, he flipped the sidelines. Right. So really? Nebraska's going to be on the shady side. Rutgers is going to be in full-blown beaming sunlight. I think that's interesting. And then today, of course, he was talking about the heat and the steps and the preparation that they're taking to be ultra ahead of things from a hydration standpoint and doing all the hydration things and sports science things that he wouldn't exactly reveal, but they're obviously taking every precaution to get ready for the heat as much as you can, right? This is like a July New Jersey game,
Crazy.
right? It's like
Yes.
brutal training camp weather.
Immediately, I can see myself standing there at the Fairfield Inn Suites in Lincoln, Nebraska, trying to get that stupid little air conditioning unit on the side because they won't have a real air conditioning because it's not a real hotel. And then climbing into
been doing this too long, man.
Climbing into the yoga mat, like the thickness of the mattress is going to be like a yoga mat. Again, I can't say enough. Eldridge across the Big Ten or didn't happen. Sorry.
I gotta say, I know we joke a lot about Greg Schiano, coach speak, Schianoisms, Schianology, all this stuff. So when Greg Schiano talks about the weather in a press conference Monday, I'm thinking that here it is again, another thing that probably is being looked into too much. And then I saw your post about the weather. I said, oh my God, he was probably underselling it. This is insane.
Yeah.
This is insane. I'm not going to do it because I don't have the patience. I would love to know, when was the last time Rutgers played a game this hot in October? It's got to be quite some time.
Good question. Don't know. Don't have the answer.
It peaks right at kickoff too, I think. Either right at kickoff or an hour after kickoff, which is just incredible.
We all know the stakes for this game. I love that across our website today, your story I picked up about college game day and Aaron Rodgers. I just think it's an example that people are talking about Rutgers beyond our bubble, which to me, obviously, we know they're going to talk about it here in New Jersey, and they're going to talk about it around us. We talk about it all the time. But when Aaron Rodgers is talking about it on the McAfee show, it's kind of interesting. It illustrates what this means, what a W will do. Because right now, on my own Twitter feed, stories that are popping up, Indiana might make the college football playoff. No, really, was one headline. The other one was undefeated Duke, maybe the college football season's biggest surprise. Like there are other teams that have that mantle right now. This is an opportunity for Rutgers to take it, right? And then suddenly they are the team that people will be talking about.
I think there are tiers of these things, right? I think Indiana is very clearly the darling of the Big Ten and the country. One, because it's a first-year head coach. Two, their 5-0 start is their first since 67 or 78 or something like that, not 2012 like Rutgers, so that they have a little bit more shine there. And they've just looked better, frankly, than Rutgers has, at least offensively, which is what pops. So I think they are, and if you look at their schedule, there is a non-zero chance they are 10-0 when they go to Ohio State. And that will be maybe the biggest game in the history of Indiana football.
It would be,
right?
Totally. Yeah.
Kurt Cignetti would be an all-time shot caller coming into Indiana saying, we're going to beat Purdue, we're going to beat Ohio State. And then if he does that his first year and goes to 11-0, that'll be an all-time moment in college football. Anyway, that all that to say, that's why Indiana, I think, is kind of in the hierarchy there. And just to be clear on the game day thing, why is Aaron Rodgers talking about game day and Rutgers on McAfee? He went to Cal, obviously. Cal is hosting game day for the first time this weekend when Miami comes to town. And it was the first time they do it. They were one of 6 entering the season that never hosted game day. Now Rutgers is one of 5. Rutgers, Syracuse, Virginia. Help me out here. Do you guys have the other 2?
Purdue?
Did you say Syracuse?
Yeah, Syracuse, Virginia, Rutgers.
West Virginia?
No, they've done it. Anyway, whatever. The point is that Rutgers is one of the 5 teams. And I kind of laid it out. I laid it out in our story. I have a hard time thinking Rutgers is going to be able to get game day on campus this year for a multitude of reasons.
I will say this. I have intel. I didn't tell you guys this. I'm at the Thursday night game, Giants Cowboys, getting into the elevator at MetLife Stadium. Who's there but Kirk Herbstreit? So I get pushed in. We get crowded in there. It's Al Michaels is on the other side of him looking straight ahead. And and then I turn to Herbie and I go, you staying an extra night for the Rutgers game? And he just looked at me and goes, they're good. They're a good team. He got fired up about it. I was like, yeah, they finally got a quarterback and complete a short pass. We had a nice little, like a nice 15-second. And someone said to Kirk Herbstreit, and you were on them before the season started. And I didn't know this, but I guess Herbstreit said some nice things about it. I was absolutely. Schiano's a good coach. Then he got off the elevator. I didn't get a chance to say, what about game day, Kirk? But still, there's some insight. It's only
Herbie was the one after the Rutgers Rant, of course, to say that the college football playoff is a possibility for Rutgers, that they could be the dark horse for the college football playoff.
You know where Herbie's not staying? The home hell suites in the Chicago airport. Anyway.
Herbie has the greatest deal in sports media. He brings his dog everywhere. He flies private.
Well, the dog was not on the elevator. I was disappointed by that.
Ben,
Like I was looking for the dog, and instead I got Al Michaels. I mean, how many?
Yeah,
that'd been great. Should have said, Al, how about you? We know you've done like 150 Giants Cowboys games. Why don't we get you down to Biscata? I can imagine it could be so great. Do you believe in Central Jersey? Yes. There you go. That's all I got.
Al's a little past his prime in wanting to participate in those kinds of conversations. Yeah. I think Al wants to get to the stadium, call the game, and get the hell out of there.
Make some noise, Al Michaels.
Al Michaels might like jump out of the press box when he hears "make some noise" in the train horn. What is this?
What is that?
Get out of here!
Someone stop that! Stop it!
But to wrap up the game day thing, I mean, I kind of laid out my case. Do you guys think there's any remote possibility of game day coming to Rutgers this year?
No,
I know. Depends. I agree with that, but I have to see the schedule. Like, why are they at Cal? I guess there's just not a better game. That's part of it too. Like, they're going to go to Alabama, whoever. You know, I mean, they don't care about return visits to big places.
Of course, Brian did a really good job laying out which weeks have the big games. Of course, right? Like Ohio State, Oregon is in next weekend. Things like that. But here's the other thing that people don't talk about too is the behind the curtain, unspoken things of college game day. ESPN versus Fox, right?
Yeah,
Fox has its own pregame show now. Fox is the contract with the Big Ten. ESPN has some deals and stuff, but they're more SEC, ACC friendly. So I think that plays a big deal of it too, big part of it too.
Yep. And again, Cal is on game day, not because it's Cal. Cal's having a nice start to the season, but they're hosting number 8 Miami. If Miami loses to Virginia Tech, they're probably not hosting game day. And that's what's hurting Rutgers. Like we've talked about how much their schedule, not having Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan helps on the field. It certainly does. And I don't think they change it. But when you don't have a sexy opponent on the other side, I don't think Rutgers has quite the appeal enough, at least, to get game day by itself.
Yeah. One other quick thing. The Wisconsin game in next weekend has the potential to be back on Fox. So it would be a second nationally televised game. And it would be maybe not crazy if Fox brought that pregame show to Piscataway.
Big noon kickoff is cool. It's not quite college game day, I think.
This all feels like a 2013 conversation anyway. They were 10 years too late for this party, right?
It's still cool. And Greg General likes to talk about steps and stops on the turnpike. Last year they had the Big Ten pregame show, which is it's nice, but it's in house, it's Big Ten, whatever. You get Big Noon Fox, you're like, okay, maybe we're going. Mm-hmm. Then next year you get College Game Day. That's when you're with the big boys.
Yeah,
that's it. Good point.
All right, speaking of the big boys, are you guys ready to play Know Your Opponent?
I am never ready.
That's not really a good transition. You're playing Know Your Opponent. We do this every week, fellas. If you not listen to the podcast, it's a fun little game, not really fun. It's a game in which I quiz these guys on 3 pieces of really important cultural information about the upcoming opponent. And I tell you, the stuff we find out never ceases to amaze me, like this one. First question. The Nebraska sports teams, as you know, are called the Cornhuskers. That was not their name for most of the 1890s. What was? A, the Rattlesnake Boys, B, the Nebraskans, C, the Bug Eaters, or D, the Tree Planters?
I love B. I love thinking of people in the 19th century, like the Nebraskans. That's just a classic, before creativity existed kind of thing.
It really is. People living in very simple log cabins. What are we going to call our team? I've got it. What is it? The Nebraskans. I love it. Great.
The Nebraskans against the Kansans. A heck of a game. I'll go with B.
You're going to go with B. Okay.
I'm going to go with the Bug Eaters.
That's it. It's the Bug Eaters. Yes. The Bug Eaters. I love it. Can you imagine? Here it is. So the moniker was given to the team because of the hardship of droughts and depressions that had plagued the state during the
Oh, no.
1890s. People are eating bugs.
The Dust Bowl.
Can you imagine that? They called them the bug. And then there had to be a meeting. They had to be like, I don't know if bug eaters is sending the right vibe to the recruits. They should have rolled with it. Should have stuck with the bug eaters.
Feels like an insult, right?
I mean, or
Tree
pride.
planters was a great throw off. I mean, that was a.
But I think that's like one of the I think that's one of the nicknames of the state. Like, it's the tree planting state. I don't know. Someone from Nebraska, please send us a note and tell us what you think. All right, second question. Mike Rozier won the Heisman Trophy at Nebraska in 1983 as a 2,000-yard rusher for one of college football's most prolific offenses. He is a Jersey guy. Which New Jersey high school field is named in his honor? A, Woodrow Wilson High. B, Patterson Eastside High. C, Atlantic City High. Or D, Camden High. I think Pat knows this. Oh, you better know this. I want to see if Brian can come up with it first. You go first.
I'll be courteous. I'll let Pat go first. I think.
Okay. That's yeah.
Shit. You throw me with the South Jersey football. You throw me with the South Jersey football.
Come on.
I'm gonna go with Camden, Woodrow Wilson High, which is now Camden. A, yeah.
Okay. Brian?
I'll agree.
It is Woodrow Wilson High. Good job.
Yes.
Good job, Pat. Excellent. There's two high schools, by the way. There's not the same high school. There's Camden.
Right. Camden High, but I thought Woodrow Wilson changed his name because of obvious reasons.
Woodrow Wilson? I don't know. Maybe it did. Did it?
It did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, when he went there, it was still named for our something president. Okay. Final question. The famous Nebraska sellout streak started on November 3rd, 1962. It will continue on October 5th, 2024. Which of the following is not true about the streak? A, that Nebraska played a sold-out game the very day after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, with the blessing of his brother, Bobby. B, added up, the crowds are more than 31 million people. C, Nebraska has won every home game in the season during the streak 23 times. Or D, that Nebraska once kept the streak alive in the mid-1970s by busing in all 534 residents from nearby Beaver Crossing, Nebraska.
It's D. It's absolutely D.
This is which is not true, right?
This is which is not true. Mm-hmm.
I'll go.
Which is not true. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'll go. Read me C again.
Nebraska has won every home game in a season during the streak 23 times.
I'll go C. There's no way they've gone. There's no way.
Pat?
I'll stick with D. Whatever.
You were right. D is correct. Yes. I did. There is an actual town named Beaver Crossing, but there's a lot of controversy about them inflating this streak, by the way. Like, there are people who think that they have, it's fiction, but I'm not going to say that while I'm there because they're very nice in Nebraska. All right, you got all three right, Pat. I think it's the first time anyone's got three right. Brian, you remain a disappointment.
A college sports team inflating a sellout? What?
We would know nothing about that here.
Who would ever do such a thing?
Keep a streak alive? Wow.
I heard the student section there stands 30 deep.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. That's why the upper deck's not full. They're all standing. Yeah. It's a pretty free. Have you guys been there yet? It's a pretty cool place. It's a pretty cool state, I will say. It might be my favorite Big Ten stadium. The shoe is great. I get the big house is awesome too, but for different reasons. But this is this is just like a city into itself. It's pretty fantastic. So look forward to it.
All right.
Picks? Want to do it?
This is the second week in a row. I still don't know what I'm going to pick.
Yeah, we got the last one right. All three of us went with the Scarlet Knights, and all three of us were rewarded. I think, Brian, you were still undefeated. I have not done the math on how much money you would have if you had just kept on betting the $100. You would think you would have like $12,000 to bet. So you'd be even in the 20s now. It's a shame.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Should have good.
You're 4-0 and also 4-0 against the spread, right?
Correct.
We're all 4-0 overall, and
Yep.
me and Politi are 3-1 against the spread.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. All right. You're the leader. That you go first. I'm not taking that off. I don't care if you know it or not. It's game time.
It's a fair point. You got to show up when it's time to play, right?
Got to show up when it's time.
We're going with 6.5. Yes.
Yep.
Nebraska minus 6.5. So this is tough environment, good team, probably the best team they've played so far. I think Rutgers has a chance. I mentioned this possibility on our rant, and I think that it would just be the most Rutgers thing of all time that Nebraska's 1-score losing streak ends on Saturday. I think Rutgers covers. I think Rutgers falls by a field goal. I will go with Nebraska 24, Rutgers 21.
Okay. You're nodding your head, Pat.
I'll take this one.
Hey, you sure? I can go. I'm ready if you're not. You ready? You ready?
Prepared. I've been listening to Springsteen's Nebraska album on repeat, coming up with lyrics and songs to put this all into perspective. The best track on Nebraska is A Reason to Believe.
Better than isn't Atlantic City on Nebraska?
It is.
Right,
It's too popular for me. It's too popular.
I see. You're just one of these guys who you just can't pick Born to Run as the best. You have to
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
It's Jungle Land is the best.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Okay, go ahead.
Rutgers is going to give its fans a reason to believe here.
Oh boy.
I came into today thinking that just the same as Brian, that Rutgers is going to go to Lincoln and hang in there, but not find a way to win, still cover the 6.5. I went back and I watched the Illinois game. They made Luke Altmaier look like one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And I think he's a good quarterback, but I think Ethan Kaliakmanis is better. I think you couple that with the running game. I think this is finally the time that Rutgers' defense is going to find its identity. I said that for 2 weeks in a row now. I've been wrong, but I'm feeling better about it this one. The Aaron Lewis conversation may still be running hot in my head. So I'm going to give Rutgers fans a reason to believe here and take the Scarlet Knights. And in a close game, in very similar score to Brian, but I'm going to go 27-24 Rutgers.
Huh? Wow. Taking the Scarlet. Didn't you pick? I thought you picked them to lose this game in the preseason. So one of your 2 losses, you can't even stick with that. Okay.
I think I did.
All right. I guess I'm going to be the asshole then. What a surprise. I'm going to go the other direction. I was thinking about it because I really do not think Nebraska's that good. I keep on coming back to this. They've lost 24 games of the past 3 seasons. I get it. They've upgraded. Mac Burrell's a better coach. Raiola is a better quarterback, better receivers, transfer portal error. You can add guys. They're just not the physical. When I look for teams that are like the physical team that pushes Rutgers around, I just don't see that necessarily. Or I'm just not sure this Rutgers team does not look like it's ready to take the next step to me, to go on a road venue to win this game. Just haven't seen it. I don't think they're going to play well. The defense was exposed against Washington a bit. So I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think it's going to be a Nebraska win. I think it's going to be a cover as well. 27-17 Nebraska victory. There you go. So there will be a shakeup in the standings. I like it. Three completely different picks. 3 different outcomes. Let's get crazy. All right. Whew. What else we got? You want to talk about a little basketball out there? Dylan Harper getting some love. Rutgers picked 7th in the media poll, a little better than 15th. What do you think?
Just slightly. Rutgers has been kind of picked all over the place, right? They got 15th in Blue Ribbon. They got 11th in Lindy's. They got, 11th in the Athletic, 9th in Lindy's, and 7th in this official Big Ten media poll, because the Big Ten itself does not have a poll for the standings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I would tend to think the latter two, Lindy's at 9 and Rutgers, and this poll at 7 is probably closer. Let me pull up. I believe I predicted Rutgers to finish 9th, but I want to be 100% sure. Yeah. Where would you guys put Rutgers in the Big Ten if you guys had to?
I mean, 7, 8, 9 seems about right now without having seen them. I saw practice. That's not enough I'm not going to go. We'll go see the scrimmage against St. John's, get a better feel for it. But certainly 15th was too low. People who think they're going to win the Big Ten, I don't see that either.
Mid pack is about right. 10, 9, 10. I think.
Nine's a little, maybe, a little pessimistic. Who the hell knows, though? I mean,
after being the ultimate optimist for football, I'm going to dial it. I'm going to reel it in a little bit here.
I can't pick them to win every single game in every sport, Landy says.
I think the reason there's optimism for Rutgers is going to be the three guys they bring to Big Ten Media Days: Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Jeremiah Williams. I think they set the ceiling, especially the two young guys, obviously. They set the ceiling for this team. I think the floor will be determined, as I've said many times, by the supporting cast, and we will find out once they roll the balls out on November 6th what you're dealing with. But I'm excited to see what Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey say tomorrow. Obviously, they were surrounded by a lot of media members at Rutgers local media day. I'm interested to see the interest from the rest of the Big Ten. Are they going to be swarmed to an equal level, or are people, going to, they're going to get more attention than any other Rutgers players ever gotten at these Big Ten media days? But my thought is it going to be the entire contingent, or is it just going to be most of the contingent? I'm excited to see that.
How are they doing it with 18 teams? Are they having them all at once? I mean, good grief.
So they have kept it to one day, which is what they've done for years now. And what they've done is usually they have every coach going up to the podium and talking for 10 minutes. This year they're doing 3 coaches at a time, sort of a panel where they all kind of sit on couches in a studio and answer your questions for 10 to 15 minutes. It's not the greatest, but frankly, from where I sit, the TV stuff is not great anyway. It's usually 3 questions from random national guys who ask. Greg Schiano gets asked every single year about recruiting New Jersey. It's usually those kind of useless questions. And then individually, going off of what they did with women today, I imagine it'll be the same with the men tomorrow. They have the coaches at individual podiums in their selected half-hour window, and then the players from each team will sit together at podiums for their window. So tomorrow, for example, it'll likely be Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, Jeremiah Williams at a table together for half an hour.
Gotcha. All right. Interesting. So anybody else who's attracting a big, I obviously have to imagine UCLA, Oregon, those guys too. I mean, what are the other big storylines?
Indiana is, again, the most talented team in the Big Ten. And the question is always, do they have a coach who can put it all together and help them win the Big Ten? I think they've gotten a really strong transfer class. Will Mike Woodson put it all together this year? That to me is the big question. UCLA, pretty high up in the preseason poll. I was a bit surprised there. Mick Cronin had a rough year last year, but again, a lot of collection of talent out of the transfer portal. Can he put it together? That's pretty much the question for every team across the country. You get all these new guys, especially with Steve Peichel, 9 new faces. Can you put it all together?
Who did you pick to be number 1 in this poll?
I voted Michigan State.
Really?
I think Tom Izzo is approaching the end, and I think he's going to kind of go full throttle, burning the candle on both ends to try to get that national championship that's eluded him for 24 years. And then I picked Indiana number 2. I'm a believer in all that talent, but the egg will almost certainly be on my face. So,
what's with the Purdue hype still? Is it just leftover, hangover?
I was surprised by that too.
A lot of Purdue stuff.
Yeah. I think they'll have a big drop-off without Zach Edey. I think people underestimate how much they depended on Zach Edey, which, I mean, they should have at the time. He's obviously a generational college basketball player. There's a lot of faith in the backcourt. Fletcher Lawyer's back. Braden Smith, preseason player of the year.
That was interesting.
I voted him there, truthfully, but that's because he is, to me, a known commodity. I think he'll be a really good guard in the Big Ten. I would not be surprised if he doesn't win the award. But I felt like anybody else I'd be kind of going out on a limb for, and there's no other player in the league where I sit. One can make an argument for Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I'm not ready to go in that direction. I don't know if you guys have any names that come to mind for you who you would have voted outside of Braden Smith.
I don't. I mean, honestly, it's a great question. Yeah, I don't have a good name. Yeah.
I don't either.
And you could come up, it's funny, you can come up with 6 or 7 guys off the top of your head in previous years. That speaks to the turnover in college basketball. It really does.
So
where were the women? What was the situation? What was the buzz about the women when you were there today? Where in the 2017 Big Ten do you think they're going to finish? Obviously not a great year last year for Hokies Washington.
Yes. I think they're confident in taking a step forward. They returned some key pieces from last year, namely
Mhm.
Destiny Adams. They add some pieces from the transfer portal, and they add a 5-star freshman, the forgotten 5-star of Rutgers basketball.
Ooh.
Everyone talks about Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey.
Sounds
There's
like a
Kiyomi
headline. There
McMillan.
you go. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yes, she is a highly ranked player. Coquise Washington, I talked to her. Pretty interesting backstory. So when Coquise Washington was at Penn State, she had camps, obviously, like every coach does. And this young 7th grader shows up and competes against all the elite high school players, and she was whooping them. She was kicking their butts. Coquise Washington usually doesn't remember 7th graders. This one stuck out in her mind. When she came to Rutgers, she kept recruiting her. Lo and behold, Kiyomi McMillan ends up at Rutgers and is kind of the face of this team. And not unlike men's basketball, where guys are here for a year and gone when you get a top 25 player, women's basketball, these girls stay till they graduate. You can't go to the WNBA till you graduate. So hopefully Rutgers, for their sake, will have her for 4 years, but I think she'll be an impact player from day one.
I can imagine Big Ten media days for the women's side. It's just 100 people asking, you remember when Caitlin Clark played in the Big Ten? Wasn't that awesome? That's the entire thing, I'm sure. But that's got to be a topic of conversation. How they're going to replace her? They can't. There's just no replacing someone that way.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. There's two things that I noticed, 2 big crowds. There was the Iowa girls and head coach, everyone wondering what's next after Caitlin Clark, obviously. And they've built some buzz of their own. They sold out their season tickets, even without Caitlin Clark, which is pretty impressive.
Wow.
Yes. And 2, Juju Watkins is kind of the next star of the Big Ten out of USC. When the Big Ten added USC, they added her.
About that. Yes.
She's a big time name, and I think she has a chance of being, if not the National Player of the Year, a big time contender there. So she'll be a fill-in for Caitlin Clark.
Clearly the reason why the Big Ten took the LA market.
Juju Watkins. When you can get Juju Watkins, you gotta take advantage.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we sign off? Before I let you get to whatever you're doing at the O'Hare? There's a casino down by O'Hare Airport.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was on the phone with my girlfriend and her dad, and they asked me where I was getting dinner, and he suggested the casino because he knows I like to place a wager or two. So I'm not sure if it's a positive influence that he's telling me to do that, but I'm not going to tell him no.
It's good. That's good.
Did you bring the Portuguese bread?
I did not. I forgot. That's a. But I don't know if it would get through TSA.
That's right. I think it would.
I'll find a bakery around here. It's all the same thing. I'll buy a random roll and tell them it's
all right. That's good.
On a serious note, one last thing before we go. This is going up on Thursday morning. By that point, Lino Mark should have committed to Rutgers. He's expected to commit Wednesday night. He is going to be the second commit of the Rutgers 2025 class. I should say consensus. On the composite, he is a 4-star guard. So he'll be their first guard in the 25 class. And Kion Anthony, who was supposed to visit Rutgers this week, is no longer visiting Rutgers, no longer considering Rutgers. So there will be no Carmelo Anthony at the rack unless they play Syracuse somehow.
Yeah, not a surprise, but okay. Good intel. All right, let's end there. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back after our stay in Lincoln, Nebraska to talk about the Rutgers Cornhuskers Bug Eaters game. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.